It's 7 o'clock, so we're going to start. I'm aware a couple of people haven't arrived yet that we're expecting, but we'll crack on. Good evening, and just a reminder to all participants: could you use the microphones when speaking, as the meeting's being webcast? And we are going to start with the first item on the agenda, and that's apologies for absence. So, do we have any apologies?
Yes, Chair, just the one from Councillor Carter, and Councillor Cox is substituting for her tonight, and I've not heard from the others.
Thank you very much. So welcome to everybody for our first meeting of 2025. So we've had an email from Councillor Ian Hunt, and that's regarding a consultation at the moment, which is strengthening the standards and the conduct framework for local authorities in England. So James Ellis is going to give us some more details on that.
Thank you, Chair. And can I just say thank you to Councillor Hunt as well for raising that. It's quite right to raise it as well. Yeah, there is a consultation open at the moment, which can be accessed from the Ministry for Housing, Communities and Local Government website about, as you say, strengthening the standards and conduct framework for local authorities in England. That consultation is open until the 26th of February. And it can be completed by individual members. It can be completed if you feel as a committee that you would rather get a unified voice from this committee to go forward. We could do that. You could tell me how you wish for us to respond, or as I say, if each individual member wants to take part in the consultation, then that is also open to them as well. It may be a case that we push it open to all members, and we can do that certainly through the member information bulletin that is sent out to members every Friday. So I'm happy for this committee to sort of direct us on how you wish us to respond to that. I will invite the independent person to speak on this as well, because the independent person is actually attending a meeting at the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government this week about this very topic. So I'll hand over to Nicholas to say a few words as well.
Oh, well, yes, this is fortuitous that this is on the agenda for this evening, because I can sort of hear what you have to say, and a bit of rehearsal for what I might want to say at the meeting on Thursday. Yes, as Councillor Hunt has suggested, and as James has explained, this is about, in colloquial terms, sort of beefing up the standards arrangements, and certainly from my point of view, I think that is a good idea. One of the things that has always struck me as being, let me just rewind a second. If you're as long in the tooth as I am, you may recall that there was a national compulsory code of conduct in 2007 that was then abolished under the Localism Act, and it then became discretionary. Local authorities had to have a code, but they could have whatever code they chose. And now I think the government is looking to have a mandatory code, which, from my independent person perspective, I think is a good idea. But as a general observation, one of the issues that has often, and James will know this as well, if not better than I do, one of the real issues that's arisen on a number of occasions is the provision in the Localism Act that the Code of Conduct is only applicable if the subject member, the member complained of, is, using the wording of the Act, incapacity. That means if they're doing things to do with the council. A consequence of that, from my point of view, has been that, not just to this authority, I'm not making a point here, but just as a general observation, there have been instances where elected councillors have done things in a quasi-private capacity, but in my view, capitalising on the fact that they are elected members to make remarks, comments, and do and say things which fall short of what, in my view, should be expected of a councillor. And just an observation to make here also, nobody makes people stand to be a councillor. This is a choice you make. And I say this, I was a magistrate for 35 years, so I chose to do it. So, and I'm conscious that I'm not making a snotty remark to you, I'm merely observing, I understand. And one of the things is, if you have chosen to be in this sort of public office role, there are certain obligations on you to conduct yourself in the magistracy, to be circumspect. That was the word that we were always told. And that means, yes, you can then say and do things in your private capacity if you want to do so. But if you're in a role as a councillor, you've been chosen by your electorate to represent them. You're in a leadership role, you're in a senior position in the community, and that carries with it certain expectations for good conduct. And I think one of the drawbacks of the present arrangements, which I shall make the point on Thursday, is that the incapacity doesn't really accommodate that, in my view, basic principle. As a councillor, more is expected of you than maybe of other people. And I think particularly of social media, where people make all, and you only have to listen to the news, people make all sorts of offensive, unpleasant, rude remarks because they can. I think if you're somebody in a position in the community, as indeed each of you is, it's incumbent on you, and I'm not saying that you don't do that, I'm just observing a certain observation. Instances have arisen where people, as I perceive it, capitalize or trade off their role as councillor because they are known to do things that fall short of the circumspection that one would expect of people in this senior responsible position. So it's a long-winded way of getting to the point about, I think the incapacity thing needs to be tightened in my view. And also one of the things I think they're looking at is how they update the sanctions arrangements. As you will know, before 2011, there was a sanction available. Indeed, when I was doing this originally in North Herts, we had an instance of where a member did something that he shouldn't have done, and we had a hearing and we imposed a disqualification sanction, and that was, in our judgment, effective. The Localism Act 2011 removed that power, and I think the government is minded to reinstate that sanction, which, handled carefully, sensitively, and judiciously, I think is appropriate. And that would follow neatly, or fall in neatly, with the present arrangements also. It's a bit of a muddle, actually. In law, there are a number of instances that might arise where elected members would be disqualified. So if, for example, they were convicted of a serious common law offence or statutory offence like rape or burglary, or if they get a prison sentence of 3 months or more, or if they find themselves on the sex offender register, there are a number of disqualifications that would apply. And I think that is right. But this needs tidying up so that you've got a clear position that people would understand of what's expected of them if they choose to stand as representatives. I'll shut up now. I've gone on quite long enough. I've just given you what I think, and it's just my view because I'm an independent person. I have the luxury of being able to express what I think, but as you do as well, of course you do. But that's just a summary of where I think we're going to, and I think it's a good idea.
Through you, Chair, as well. Thank you, Nicholas. Yeah, as you've heard, Nicholas is going to be attending a meeting at MHCLG on Thursday. I'm also going to be attending, but in a remote capacity, so I won't be actually participating in the meeting, but I will also be listening in on the discussions that are taking place, and I can obviously come back and share what views are sort of being considered, I suppose. So from this committee's perspective, what would be useful, I suppose, is if you can tell me whether you would rather each member be encouraged to take part in the consultation separately as their own free members, or whether you would rather us have a unified approach from this committee. Whichever is fine. I don't think there's a better way, one being better than the other, but you might get more views if you push it out to all members, I suppose. Whereas if you do it through this committee, it may just reflect the members of this committee. Might be one criticism, but by doing it that way, equally, there's nothing to stop a member going on and doing it anyway. It's going to be, and there's no way of controlling who does it anyway. So it may be better to put it in the member information bulletin and encourage as many people to get involved as possible. I can certainly do it from my perspective as a monitoring officer. Doubtless Nicholas will do so as his role as an independent person, but I'm happy to take any views or questions that you might have on that topic.
I wonder if it's possible, like you say, to push it out to all members, but perhaps is it possible for us to have a bit of a summary of what Nicholas has just said within that within that email? Would that be useful? You know, because obviously they're not, you know, they're not here and haven't heard that. I just feel what Nicola's point of view is really, really important and useful. So,
What I can do, if you would like, we can in the member information bulletin topic, you can click it to go through to a bit more information. We could provide a link to tonight's meeting on YouTube so members can watch, particularly the beginning part when Nicola's just spoken. So we could certainly do that if you think that would be beneficial.
Thank you, Chair. I think what would be quite helpful for members at large, because I agree, I think we should get a plurality of views across all councillors, is from the consultation website the kind of 5 key bullet points, or 5 key areas of consultation that they're looking at. So I think that covers largely what Nicholas said, but obviously in the language that the consultation is seeking. Because I think there's some in there where it's quite a straightforward response, and I think there's others where people may have differing views or kind of concerns around how it should be implemented. So I think it's worth using that if we can in these comms.
Can I just add? I mean, yes, as Jim said, I think it's useful for you to see what the government's actually saying. And there are about 40 odd questions. Some of them are yes, no, but others are more discursive. And as you read it in the context of the explanation of what the plans are, I think, as Councillor Passaduata just said, there may be a number of views, some supportive, some not supportive, but it's an easy read and it's well worth reading. Given what this committee's function is, I think it's central to what you do, and I think I would certainly commend it. Never mind what I said, this is my own take, but that's more important than my own views.
that's great. Thank you very much. So moving forward, we will push that out to all members with advice to watch the beginning of this meeting, and obviously to go on to the consultation itself to look in depth at those questions. Thank you very much.
You didn't look my way. You just looked all around everywhere, you see. Now, what was I going to say? I think it's important to do it individually because people in rural areas and people in town areas might see certain points quite differently. When I know living in a small village and dealing with small villages, whatever I do, I have to be aware that people know I'm the district council and treat me that way. So it's very difficult to separate what Nicholas was talking about in the small rural community. It's actually good, and these chaps will know that as well.
So are you saying that people expect different things of you in 24/7, basically?
Basically, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, if I happen to be sitting at my desk at home, I get phone calls, evening, daytime, anytime, and some will say, "Are you working at the moment? Are you on duty?" So I just take the call and deal with it. But people expect you to be in that capacity all the time, and I'm sure these people find the same in their small parish council. That people see you and they say, "Oh, you're a parish councillor. What are you going to do about this?" And that happens, and certainly with me, I find it happens as a district councillor. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. So moving on to item 3, which is any declarations of interest. So are there any? Okay, thank you very much. So then moving on to the minutes. So members, we have before us the minutes from the Standards Committee meeting held on the 16th of July 2024. So Peter has something to say about item 91 in those minutes.
Yeah, not just item 91, and the co-optees weren't listed as present in the minutes, so we need to add that. And then under minute 91, the resolution is not quite right. It should read Councillor Clements, and the year should read 24-25. So subject to that, can someone propose the minutes with those amendments, then we can vote on that. Thank you.
So please can we have a proposer adding in with those amendments? Councillor Passaduata, thank you very much. And a seconder, Councillor Clements, thank you very much. So can we have a vote on those minutes, please, with the amendments? Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. So thank you very much. So that's carried, and I'll sign the minutes after the meeting. Thank you. Moving on to item number 5, and that's the standards update. So, James, could you please present it for us? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. As is customary at this committee, we have the standards update, which takes us across the last 6 months here at East Tartan, a summary of the complaints that have been received by me as the monitoring officer during that time. If you go down to the table, which is 2.4, you will see that there are a number of complaints. As always, they have been anonymised, so that there is not you don't know which town council or which district council we're talking about. There is a summary of what the complaint is and the action taken in the third column. It was raised to me that the link in the first one wasn't working. I think what I probably did there was I've used an internal link, whereas I should have done an external link for people not at East Hart. So I think a replacement link has since been sent out, and that is accessible obviously through our website, so you can see what happened at that subcommittee. And indeed, Councillor Stowe was at that subcommittee as well. I've taken on board what was suggested at the last meeting, because previously, where a complaint was withdrawn or not taken forward as some of the others were, then we would just not report them. I think it was raised at the last meeting that was a little bit confusing, and it would be better just to have all of the complaints there, and where they were discontinued for whatever reason, that an explanation was put in there. So going forward from this meeting onwards, then all complaints will be there, irrespective of whether or not they are considered by myself or not. So I've taken that on board, and as I say, I'm happy to take any questions you may have of surrounding any of the complaints that are listed there, or anything else in the report.
Thank you. One of the points that were raised at last time's meeting, I think it was by Councillor Prasad, was that we asked if it was possible to note who had made the complaint, whether it was a councillor or a member of the public. And your deputy, I think it was attending the meeting, and indicated that would be possible as long as the person remained anonymous. I can't see that's happened on this table. I wondered if you had any comment about that.
All I can do is apologise. I wasn't aware that had been proposed at the last meeting. I'm afraid. I'm happy to do that. I can tell you from looking at these. So complaint 13 was by another councillor. Complaint number 3 was by a member of the public. Complaint number 5 was by a member of the public. Complaint 6 and 7 were by other town councillors, and complaint 8 was by another district councillor.
Just a question, just because I'm wondering if you decide it's not a standards matter, is the councillor or the person informed at all, or is it you just sort of
What the most regular occurrence that we have of a complaint coming forward that isn't a standards matter is where a member of the public is unhappy with their council and how that they are responding or not responding to their emails, phone calls, whatever it may be. So we will often get complaints from a member of the public saying, I've contacted my district councillor or parish councillor 3-4 times and I've not had a response yet. I want to put in a complaint against them. Now that's not a standards complaint. What that is displeasure with how your councillor is performing their duties. And as is open to all electors, if that's how you feel about your councillor and you're not happy with how they're performing their duty, then the next time there's an election, you can go to the ballot box and vote for someone else, which is the advice that I would normally say. And said, well, the way to deal with this is to express your view in the ballot box, not through the standards regime.
right?
However, in such circumstances, what I will do as a courtesy is I will normally contact the councillor and say, I've been contacted by your constituents saying that they've contacted you on 3 or 4 occasions and not had a response. Would you mind getting back to them, at your convenience, because they have now come to me and asked that I get in contact with them. But there's no, I don't have to do that.
No
But I think
formal
it's probably just a courtesy thing.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, the member will normally find out. If it was any other form of complaint that wasn't a a standards matter, then I would take a view on it. I have had some before which I have deemed not to be anything to do with the code, and I've taken the view there's no need to trouble the member with it because it's completely spurious. But in that other example that I gave you, I think there is a benefit just to try and give a nudge to see if it can be resolved separately.
Yes, yeah. Well, thank you for that. That's useful. Thank you. All right, so item 6, code for local authority statutory officers. So again, over to James. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so you will have seen that this is a code of practice for good governance for local authority statutory officers. I think it's self-explanatory if you've read the report what it's trying to achieve, and you will see that working together the three bodies there: Solace, which is the body that acts for chief executives; SIPFA, which is the finance one that operates for Section 151 officers; and LLG, which kind of de facto works on behalf of monitoring officers. So those three bodies have come together to work on this code and put it together. I think it's important to strengthen that golden triangle, as is it's throughout the code. The reference to the golden triangle is reiterated throughout. Having a very strong golden triangle in your local authority is the best way to ensure good governance. I attended a training course towards the middle of last year, I think it was, where we were sort of told about various councils across the country that were facing a lot of difficulties, and there was usually a sort of a golden thread that went through all of them, which was breakdown between the three statutory officers at some point. So having something like this in place is important. Where we have been, where it's been picked up previously that we may have had some difficulty in that area. Again, this shows our commitment to strengthening it and showing that that there is a determination by this local authority to ensure that each members of each point of that triangle are in senior positions within the local authority, and it's important, as you will have seen from the code itself, that they are included in all decision making of the council and are able to attend meetings of the leadership team, which is not the case everywhere. It is already the case here, but that is not the case in some local authorities. So this code emphasises the need for that, and you will also see the Nolan principles, which you as elected members will be more than familiar with. This is reiterating, obviously, that they are not just there for elected members; they are there for everyone who works in a public role, and re-emphasising that they need to be taken on board by the head of paid service, the monitoring officer, and the Section 151 officer. It is a fairly comprehensive code, so I'm happy to take any questions that you may have from different aspects of what it says in there. But yeah, as I said, the report is fairly self-explanatory as to why we think it's important to have. Be interesting to have your views as well about whether you think it would be beneficial for us to take it forward to council for formal adoption, because that's something we could do. Otherwise, it will still be in existence, and we could dip in and out of it if we wished. But personally, I think adoption by council would show sort of a serious intent by the local authority to reaffirm the importance of emphasising that those 3 points of the triangle are working effectively together.
Thank you very much, James. Does anyone have any questions or comments about?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And thank you for bringing this for James. In terms of the code, I kind kind of relatively able to comment. You say it's quite comprehensive. It all looks like very good stuff. I certainly have no qualms with anything that is in that code. I am interested in the report that's referenced here by the LGA. It's the first time I've seen references to it, and obviously there's it's kind of concerning that this Golden Triangle apparently hasn't been working at East Herts, and it feels like this code is being brought forward certainly in part in response to that report there. I haven't seen the report. I don't know the exact issues that we're behaving there. I don't think that report has been made public. I don't know if it can be shared with the members of this committee, but there was nothing new in the code that we're proposing to adopt, and so the fact that something went wrong and that's been highlighted, I'm not quite sure how adopting this code is going to mitigate that. We have a new CEO, we have a new Section 151 officer now. That's fine, but I don't know if adoption of this code is going to give any more reassurance that the issues that we apparently had previously, and as I say, I've not seen the report. I don't know if adopting this code is going to give any assurance that won't happen again. So I suppose, yeah, two questions there is, can the report be shared? I don't know if that's a question for you, Chair. And what reassurances are there coming from this code, the adoption, that won't happen again?
So on the first point on the DMA report, so the DMA report is largely, as you've already alluded to, and as it says in 3.2, that there are different people in those roles now. So a lot of the comments that might be coming out of the DMA report will be slightly out of date now. It is something that I would need to raise with the chief executive about what status that report has, because it was originally meant to sort of feed into the senior management restructure that was going to be happening here at the council. Clearly, with the change in leadership of the council from an officer side, that process is ongoing, but not in line with the DMA report as such anymore. So we are taking bits from that report, but it's not. We're not using it as comprehensively as we would otherwise have done. So the changes in the problems that were being experienced by the previous Golden Triangle are, as one point of that triangle, not present anymore. I would say it is functioning a lot better. We are having a lot of meetings through myself, the new interim chief exec and the new interim 151 officer. So if you can leave that with me about whether or not that can be shared, I'm happy to take that away and report back to this committee on that point. On your second point about bringing forward this code and whether that will have any impact on us going forward, it's rather fortuitous that this has come forward when it has. This was being prepared by Solis, SIPFA, and LLG anyway, and it's being adopted by numerous local authorities. I think it's just been adopted by North Herts recently. It's being adopted. I think I've mentioned in the report that we've spoken at the heads of legal meeting around this, and it is being widely adopted by several councils in the area. So it's not specifically being brought forward here in direct response to any kind of issues that we have here at the local authority. It would have been coming forward anyway. But I think having something like this there is going to be much easier for us to be able to refer to this if there are instances where we are not sure about how the triangle should be operating. There are stuff in the report, in the code, sorry, about having regular meetings between the three points of the triangle and having those minuted. That wasn't happening previously. It can be something that we can look to do and make sure that is happening. So it's just, I think it's a nice refresher basically for a local authority to have something that they can refer to, which has come from external rather than from internal, because all local authorities without this code, how the 3 points of that triangle operate will be idiosyncratic to them themselves, and it'll be something that will have developed over time. And as happens in a lot of organizations, when things have been trucking along for a while, you might fall into bad habits, you might stop doing some of the stuff, you might start doing things that you don't need to. Having something like this that's come from external, from, as I say, Solis, SIPFA and LLG, it's useful to have that external sort of point of view and kind of something that can help you repoint your compass, if you like, if you've fallen out of a habit of doing something. So as I said, one that jumps to my mind now is having those regular meetings where the three officers are meeting. That there's also a very big emphasis here about having the auditor come to meetings. Again, that might be something that may have happened years ago and then fallen out of favour for whatever reason and not been picked up again. So it's a really useful document for us to have us refresh our sort of consciousness about what we should be doing and reaffirming that we are going to be doing that. And as I say, if we were to have it adopted by the council, then it's something that's been ratified by this authority as something that members feel is important and something that we can, as officers, make sure that we are actually doing. So I think, as I said, this has come along anyway, and it would have been something that we'd have been looking to adopt anyway. I do take what you say, Councillor Clement, about how can you be sure that this alone is going to be enough to sort of strengthen the triangle. As I say, I am one point of that triangle. I can say it is functioning very well at the moment. We are having regular meetings. Another thing that we've decided to do recently is cement the budget meetings so that they are year long, that they are throughout the year. Previously, we may have sort of done it in the budget run up and then stopped and then start up again. I think we've decided, well, why are we doing that? Let's just have it all year long. It can be something that we can do, all the way through. There's no point sort of leaving it until sort of the budget is nearly upon us, kind of thing. So that's another thing that we have now decided to pick up. So as I say, as one point of that triangle, I think it is working very well at the moment. And I think having something like this in the background can only be helpful because it's going to allow us to sort of reaffirm stuff that we may have sort of forgotten or sort of fallen out of a habit of doing.
I think as such, perhaps looking at this and seeing that other local authorities as a whole have adopted it, I feel it would be useful perhaps for it to come to full council so that also all members get sight of it as well. From what you're saying, James, it infers that it's very useful for you to have, and rather for us, just us to look at it. I think it would be good for everyone to see it.
And I think as well, as I say, from my role as the monitoring officer, I have a lot to do with LLG. I use their website a lot. I go to a lot of their events. I speak to people from LLG. But then again, I don't have much to do with SIPFA and I don't have much to do with Solis. That's probably true of the Section 141 officer with their relationship with SIPFA and the Chief Exec with Solis. So having all of those three organisations having worked on one document where we're all dipping into is really useful because it's coming from all of the different perspectives. So obviously SIPFA will have put the importance of the finances aspect into the report, that the LLG would have put all of the importance placed around the monitoring officer's work in there. So it's really useful to have a collaboration of those three to put all three emphases in there, and for myself as the monitoring officer to be able to jump in and see what Solis is saying about the role of the chief executive or the head of paid service is really useful. So yeah, having that collaboration between the three bodies is something that makes the code very valuable, I think, because if it was just one of those bodies having worked on it in solitary and sort of brought it forward just on their own, I don't think it would have been as useful, because clearly you can only speak to your own your own area of expertise. So having the three of them work on it makes it all the more valuable, I think.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wyatt.
Thanks very much. Yeah, no, just to add, I sort of completely understand the rationale for bringing this forward. I think I'll just add that obviously where two of the 3 points of the triangle are currently kind of in interim roles at the moment, I think putting the structure in place now, whilst we sort of look to make those roles permanent or seek others for those roles, I think is just useful for kind of take us into the future, that is then a structure going forward for whoever is in any of those three roles, and ultimately is kind of better for the governance of the council. And I agree with you, Chair, that I think taking this forward to full council for others to have sight of, but probably with a recommendation from this committee and the support of this committee would be useful.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Oh, Councillor Stowe.
We're saying about going to full council, but isn't there a comment in the paper about it going to overview and scrutiny first?
Yeah, so as Councillor Parsad-White touched on there, I think with the role that this committee plays, I think it would be useful to have that endorsement from Standards Committee. with it being the formation of new policy that is within overview and scrutiny's terms of reference as well. So it'd be for the chair of ONS to decide whether or not it would be something that they would want to look at as well. They may well do that because, as I say, it is in their terms of reference to consider new policy or codes that are coming forward to the council, irrespective of whether it goes to ONS. It would still be added value, I think, to have the fact that it went to the Standards Committee, and having considered it, the committee were thinking that it was a good thing to bring forward. So that would definitely form part of anything that went to ONS and then to council. So it will definitely be something that we will put on the radar of ONS to see if they want to consider it as well. And then from there on, we'll take it on to council for formal adoption with the views of this committee and possibly ONS there to say that, you know, you think there is value for it to be adopted.
Thank you very much. Oh, and Councillor Clements again.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So just going back to my point about how we make sure that there aren't these issues again, I wonder if we as a standards committee have slightly let our eye off the ball here, because, you know, clearly there were issues. We weren't discussing them at any of our previous meetings. Great that we are potentially going to have this code of conduct, but I wonder if we as a committee should be looking to say, well, okay, should we be asking for an updated report each year, or, you know, questioning any one of our 3 points of a triangle? You know, how is this going? We've now got a code of practice for good governance. Should we as a committee be ensuring that those standards aren't slipping as, you know, time moves on again? It's great that we've got the code, but I do sort of feel that, like, we as a standards committee weren't discussing any of this, weren't having any visibility into it. And so, yeah, if we can get the report, that was kind of why I was asking about the report, because, yeah, I didn't feel that we understood the issues that happened. And so should we be doing more to stop it in future, or to help avoid it in future?
Through you, Chair. I'm happy to take suggestions on how that would be presented to this committee. Clearly, there is the standards update which we've had earlier in this meeting around complaints against councillors and the like. I don't know whether they would. I don't know how anything similar could work with officers. I'm happy to sort of talk with yourself, Councillor Clements, and whoever else is interested about how that might be presented. I'm conscious as well, obviously, that some issues between officers would be a HR issue, and therefore, you know, depending on what the issue is and how it's being dealt, it might be sensitive, it might be a HR issue and not suitable for airing in a public committee. But if there are sort of suggestions on how that aspect of what you were mentioning there, Councillor Clements, is kind of brought to you, I'm happy to sort of take some suggestions around that and try and develop something. But as I say, if there are certain points, then there will be certain things that won't be appropriate for this committee, really.
Can I just ask, do you have an officer member protocol? Yes. I'm just wondering whether that might be the route. Only it's your business, not mine. It's not really a standards matter from my point of view. But I'm just interested in governance and all these sorts of issues, and the interdependent relationship that you have. And the word interdependent, oddly, doesn't come up in any of this. I did a word search because it's a word I'm very keen on, and because that's the basis of how local authorities function. And I'm just wondering, just picking up Councillor Clements' point, whether maybe a route into that, picking up on what James rightly, in my view, suggests might be a bit of reservation, whether there's any merit in your looking to see whether the officer member protocol is working as well as it might, because that's the member perspective and how your relationships are working with officers, rather than you're assessing how officers are working as officers. It's not really, I would have thought, it isn't necessarily within your remit, but the relationship between the two sides possibly is. But it's a matter for you, but it just occurs to me in the light of what we're talking about.
Okay. Councillor Stowe.
Just following on what Councillor Clements said, I think there's a value in the fact that we're going to perhaps vote on this tonight, and it feels very sterile what we're doing without some sort of feedback. I mean, the monitoring officer, yourself, of course, the test of the councillors is through that system. We don't want to test the officers. What we want to know is that it's made an improvement. And I don't know how we do that or what mechanism we can use, but otherwise we're just approving things in a sterile manner, aren't we?
Yeah, you know, taking what Nicholas said and what Councillor Stowe said, there, I think there are complications in bringing a report that kind of, you know, provides a kind of a précis on how the three statutory officers are working, if you like. But as I say, I'm happy to work on something that we can bring and try and flesh that out so that there is something, and how that is best done, whether it's through this committee or whether it's through another committee, I'm not sure. But if you would like, I can go away and sort of have a think about that and report back. Maybe not to this committee because we don't have another meeting until June. But I can certainly email you separately and sort of try and sort of flesh that out as to a proposal on how to proceed with that. But as I say, it isn't purely a standards matter really for the standards committee. Obviously, we've brought this because it, as I've said in the report, there is a remit to this committee to ensure sort of good governance of the council. But if you can leave that with me, I can try and think of something that could work, and then I can possibly send it to this committee and get your views on that.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, it sometimes feels that standards committee and officers are sometimes working not interdependently. You know, we're very independent of each other, and I think sometimes I think that's where the problem lies sometimes. But like we talk about councillors a lot, we talk about officers a lot, but our jobs are very dovetailed, aren't they? And sometimes it's hard trying to separate the two. And in this case, it feels like we are having to do that. So that would be really useful. Thank you, James. So, any other comments or questions? So are we going to move forward to adopt the code, but then James sending us more details? We happy? How are people feeling?
Well, I'm happy to propose we accept the idea of this and put it forward to full council.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, the recommendation for standards committee to consider the code and provide any comments to the monitoring officer as we've done, and that the committee recommend to the council formal adoption of the code, but then James will send that to the council. Lovely. So could I have a proposer for that? Oh, thank you. Sorry, Councillor Stoughton, to second that. Thank you, Councillor Puzzleworth. Thank you very much. And so everyone, those who are for. Thank you. And yes. And those who are abstaining. Any against? Yeah. Thank you very much. So that is carried. Moving on to the last item, is there any urgent business? Nothing? Okay, so there's no urgent items, and that concludes tonight's meeting. Thank you very much. At 19:43. Thank you.